Phil Lindemann on Crystal 93 talking to school board candidates, our 9 candidates, a very packed field. And today I'm talking with Toby Babich coming to me from Breckenridge. Toby, thanks for making it on the phone.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I appreciate you reaching out, and thanks for doing a deep dive into these candidates. It's a very important election, and the more information we can get out, the better.
I agree. And it's just talking to somebody else who was like, it's an off-year election. It's one of those, there's no presidential stuff. There's no big other, local candidates running. But this is still important. And before we get to school board, though, wanted to talk with you about your background. So for folks who aren't familiar with you, Toby, tell me, your role here in Summit County, what you do as your full-time career, and then also how you ended up here. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, I actually ended up here because I grew up here. So I'm a first generation. My kids are second generation at Summit School District. Went to Breck Elementary, went to Summit Middle School, left right before starting high school, moved to Louisiana and kind of had some adventures out there, but relocated back here with my family in 2008. We started a vacation rental company called Resort Managers here in Breckenridge. We do vacation rentals, community management, real estate, kind of a one-stop shop. And I've spent a total of 24 years of my life in the town of Breckenridge in Summit County.
Great. Well, welcome back. I mean, you've been here for a while now at this point, but what brought you back? What made you want to come back to Summit?
Well, interestingly, it was my kids and where they were going to go to school. And we had our first 2 kids in Louisiana, decided that we wanted something better for them from an education standpoint and from an upbringing standpoint. Growing up in Breckenridge and Summit County, I knew all that it had to offer. I grew up here as a young kid. It wasn't exactly easy, but it certainly was a wonderful experience. So the schools brought us here, the environment brought us here, the recreation brought us here, and it's been a wonderful upbringing for my 3 young kids that are in the Summit School District.
Okay. And like you said, you came back from Louisiana, and part of that was the schools. What about the school system appealed to you? Why make the move?
Yeah, the move was made relative to schools because of the high achievement of our Summit School District. Now, this was back in 2008. Obviously, times were different. The demographic up here essentially was a high-achieving demographic. The schools were, very attractive from what they could offer our kids from an education standpoint, and that's essentially one of the driving reasons why we wanted them in the Summit School District back in 2008. And it's paid off. I can say our kids have really benefited from being in the school district, and probably more than we could have imagined when we moved back here in 2008.
What grades are they in?
I have a 5th grader, an 8th grader, and a junior in high school.
So the whole spectrum, from elementary to middle to high school.
Correct. Yeah. Right now, it's kind of hell year for us because we've got 3 different kids going to 3 different schools with 3 different schedules, and they all play sports, and we get pulled in a lot of different directions. But the proximity of the schools helps with that. We're not spread out as far as some in other cities, but it's been an interesting year getting everybody around, specifically with the transportation issues that the school district's been having.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting year just in general, and interesting past, 2 years. Tell me how you as a parent have been handling COVID and also how your kids have gone through it. Do you feel like they have been shortchanged, missing out, or do you feel like they are still getting the education they need?
I feel like they're still getting the education they need overall. I think COVID and specifically the move to online learning and then blended was difficult, not only for our kids, but probably for every child in the district. It's not a typical educational model. Some kids need to be in person. My middle daughter, for instance, really thrives with an in-person environment where my oldest daughter is able to manage on her own. But, I can tell you that I think in response to COVID, the district did a wonderful job pivoting and continuing to offer educational models that children were able to continue to experience success. It's something that I feel like the school district did really well in response to an unprecedented situation.
Yeah, and as I've been talking to other candidates, one thing that has come up is that we need to keep on moving forward. We need to get back to what it was before, get back to events and in-together gatherings and conferences, all that sort of stuff. Where do you stand on that? Is it time to get back to normal, or do we continue with a blended approach for children like maybe, say, your eldest daughter, who it worked for them?
I think they can both coexist. I think we do need to try and resume some normalcy and leave the fear of COVID behind us and start moving forward again. I think it's very important we focus on that as a community and as a school district. It's something that we are going to have to learn how to live with. So we might as well start looking at how we live with it moving forward from there. That being said, I think one of the things that COVID exposed is that we don't necessarily have to ascribe to the old way of doing things for all of our kids. I think we do need to start looking at options. The Snowy Peaks is a great option for kids that could potentially be expanded to serve more kids in the district who may benefit from that style of learning. We may want to look at an online component for kids who would be able to succeed in that model. I don't think we want to just, quote unquote, get back to normal. I think we need to learn from what we've gone through and adapt and hold on to the things that have worked and get rid of the things that have caused us problems.
Yeah, and Snowy Peaks, that's an example I hadn't thought of, because the one that comes to mind for me is like we have many, many student athletes, especially full-time year-round student athletes. Like I'm thinking of, over in Eagle County, Vail Ski Academy. Lots of online learning because they're constantly traveling. They're going everywhere for stuff. And honestly, I don't know their academics all that well, but from what I hear, the kids perform pretty well because it works for them. They found a way to make it happen.
Right. It works for them. And to be honest with you, they hold those kids to an extremely high standard. I think it works for them. It allows them to thrive in an environment that suits them better. I've never been a huge fan of making everything standardized for every kid, because every kid, and I have 3 of them, every kid is different. They need different things. They respond in different ways. They have individual idiosyncrasies that need to be catered to. Having a more nimble model where we can offer more learning styles to different kids would probably serve our population much better. So something we can definitely look at in the strategic plan as we move forward.
And speaking of standardization, one big talking point for candidates this year has been test scores, academics. What is happening, from elementary school all the way to middle school? Where do you stand on academics and test scores? Do you think test scores are showing a downward trend with our schools, or do they not show the full picture?
Obviously, if you're just looking at the raw data, test scores are down, right? Academic achievement is down. I've been looking at some very concerning statistics relative to reading proficiency and math proficiency in different grades. And I've spoken to a lot of teachers about, what I've called the achievement gap in some of our students and where that begins at. And I think test scores are important to look at as a baseline, but it doesn't speak to the whole picture. And the whole picture is really looking at the response of the child within the system. There's social, emotional, there's straight academics. We really need to make sure our kids are not just succeeding at getting good grades, but are succeeding in building a foundation on which they can build a successful life as adults. And that's going to encompass more than just test scores, but we do have to have those test scores as a baseline for our overall achievement picture, and to identify maybe where we need to focus a little more or a little less attention in terms of our curriculum.
Yeah, and that was my next question for you, was as a board member, how do you see your role in shaping curriculum and tweaking it, making it work for the students, the teachers, and in the end, improving those test scores, those things that everybody looks at as, that baseline.
Right. I think really the role of a board member is to craft an architecture or an environment where curriculum can be critically assessed by the constituents that are impacted by the curriculum, the students, the teachers, the parents. And that feedback from the community constituents can guide the direction of the curriculum. I don't necessarily believe in a top-down approach to implementing a curriculum. I think there are many people out there that are much smarter than I am and much more well-versed in academic curriculum and how it impacts the constituent elements within the community. So my job as a board member is going to be, number one, to set the stage so that we have open, transparent feedback process as we develop curriculum. And number two, make sure we're hiring the right people to develop that curriculum using that feedback. That's more of the strategic role of the board, is creating the environment where a curriculum can be born that's most impactful for the folks that it is meant to serve, and that's our student body.
Great. Let's talk about those two things. Transparency, digging into transparency. What does that look like as a board member, if elected? How would you inspire that, and how would it, help your role as a board member?
Yeah, transparency is, of course, that's a term that's in vogue right now, and it's very critical, specifically when you're talking about people's children. The way that we set policies in motion, the way that we plan for curriculum, the way that we deal with health and safety, it all needs to be transparent, and that comes from having accessibility to our teachers, to our administrative staff, to our principals, to our board members. We need constant, accessible people that are serving the school district, and we need to foster environments where that accessibility is able to thrive. Town halls, open forums, individual meetings, it takes on a bunch of different lives, but we need to be fully and consistently accessible to our students, to our parents, to our teachers, and really build this district more than just a district, but more like a community that have open dialogue and are able to solve community problems in a collaborative fashion. Okay.
And the next issue was, like you said, staff. Teachers, the people who make things work on the ground day in and day out. What would be some solutions to inspiring retention, and not just that year-over-year retention, but 5-year retention, 10-year retention, helping keep and hold on to those good teachers?
Yeah, I think it comes down to really two simple criteria. It's paying them so that they can be able to create a life for themselves in our community, and being able to essentially nurture housing options for them in partnership with our municipalities and with our county. And I know these are discussions that have been going on, and more globally, they're going on in our community. But, if we don't pay teachers a wage that will allow them to create a life here, and they're not able to find housing that's more permanent. I've heard stories of teachers living in garages and lock-offs and individual rooms and homes. If we're not able to bring them into our community and actually make them feel like they're part of a community, then we're not going to be able to retain our teachers. So paying them, offering them housing, will go a long way in teacher retention. And we can't kid ourselves, too. This is not the issue we're having with our staffing is not relegated just to our school district, nor to our county, nor to our state. It's a nationwide issue, and we're dealing with forces at play that we're not going to be able to control in a lot of ways. But the things we can control, we really need to focus on those. And again, that's pay and housing for our teachers.
Yeah, essentially, good teachers can't be treated like your seasonal lifty. The person who shows up, works a season, says that was fun, and then goes back to wherever they came from.
Right, and teachers are here for the long term, right? Or they want to be. I think that's the intent of most teachers. we have to craft and create an environment where they're able to integrate into the community for the long term, establish roots, build a family structure of their own. That's what's going to be critical. And it's a more holistic discussion, but we have to build that environment here for our teachers, because I do believe that they want to be part of this community and stay here for the long term. They just don't, in a large way, they don't have that chance just based on the economics of our particular county.
Yeah, think back on your time as a student in Summit School District. Do you remember any of your teachers, maybe some folks that have been around for many years or even decades? What was it like for teachers back then? Could you even comment on it?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a little bit fuzzy, but I know, for instance, I had a teacher, Miss Brady, and she's used to be well known around here, Merrill Brady, and she was here forever. Wonderful lady. She had kids of her own here, had a family here, was part of the fabric of our community. But that being said, I think we were experiencing the same challenges back then. We had somewhat of a revolving door of teachers, and maybe not to the extent that we have today, but it was probably very similar to what we experience today in terms of teacher retention. I remember a few of my teachers, and I remember them well, but there's a lot that I don't remember.
Yeah, and Toby, I'm glad you brought that up, because it does seem like, yes, right now maybe the issues that we're dealing with, housing, staffing, pay, those are things that might seem amplified right now. But in a resort town, a resort community, they never exactly go away. And given your profession, working with housing rentals and seeing that side of things, what would you say to that? Are things worse right now than you've seen before, or is it just another cycle?
I think it's both. I think coming out of COVID, the great migration that it's been called, people moving around, working remotely, kids doing online learning, so families are living in more rural destinations or resort destinations. That's at play. Real estate prices have gone through the roof. That's a factor in the discussion. But we're in a painful moment right now, and I believe that it will normalize, it will equalize, but that doesn't mean we don't need to be doing things that get rid of the pain points that we're experiencing relative to workforce, relative to housing, relative to retention. There are things that we can be doing short term. It will equalize, but we're in a painful moment right now, and it's impacting everybody, and it's really difficult to navigate. I think it's creating desperation in a lot of folks, and our job as a district is going to be to critically assess our current needs and work expeditiously to really address those needs, so that we don't make the problem worse by inaction.
Yeah, you can't just sit back and say it's cyclical. It comes around, it goes around, and it will return to where it was. You got to take care of things now, because hopefully maybe in the future this will help alleviate some of those other issues. Definitely.
We have to be active. We have to be engaged. We have to be nimble. We have to take action on the things that are impacting our district negatively right now.
Maybe one more question for you. So it has been it's been a volatile time for the district in general, especially administration. 3 superintendents in 3 years, lots of change over there, some people resigning from the board, and lots of accusations of letting politics interrupt the school. Letting politics into the classroom, or even letting politics into the boardroom. Where do you stand on, politics as it fits into a school board? Should decisions be politically motivated? Should you be, siding liberal, conservative, any side of that spectrum?
I mean, unequivocally, no. A school district is no place for politics. And really, locally within our community, I don't believe it's a place for politics. I'm a politically independent person. I work with everybody and collaboratively to find solutions that benefit our community. And whether you're talking about the school board, or I'm also mayor in Blue River, I'm president of our local lodging association here. political, what's next to your name, whether it's D or R or I or L, it shouldn't matter. Specifically in the context of the school board, our focus should be on the kids and solving the problems and issues that we're facing as a district. And, I have become concerned as a parent, over the last couple of years, looking at it from the outside of the turnover with the board, with the superintendent, with some of the administrative staff, and some of the discussions that have gone on. They just do not seem appropriate for a school board forum. I think we have much bigger problems that we need to solve. And to do that, we need to be focusing on those problems and not letting the national or statewide political discourse begin infecting the discussions we're having. And I feel like that's happened to a certain extent. It's time to reverse course on that and start focusing again on our needs as a district and collaborating with one another to solve the problems that we have.
What are two specific examples of those discussions that just don't have a place for a school board?
Yeah, I think looking at it from the outside in, the discourse surrounding the equity policy, I think was a huge miss for our community. I don't necessarily disagree with some of the fundamentals within the policy. For instance, part of the policy is about serving children as the individuals they are and giving them the resources they need so that they graduate prepared for success after high school, which is actually written into that policy. And I think that's something we would all agree with. The issue came in that, how the policy was crafted and some of the insinuations within the policy really overlaid a political dialogue in what should have been an education and achievement-focused discussion. So I think that was really impactful to our community and really missed the mark. On top of that, the second thing I would reference is just the dialogue surrounding the hiring and then what I assume was, the terminating for cause of the superintendent, Dr. Smith. And I met Dr. Smith a few times. I thought he was a good man, but God knows I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But, I think politics was definitely at play there. It hit the newspaper a few times just relative to the broader discussion about BLM and things like that. And it's a distraction from what our real core mission and purpose is, which is to nurture our students and provide them with the resources they need to succeed. And we got lost within a few of those discussions, and I think it took focus away from actually solving the issues that we need to deal with.
And Toby, final question for you. Looking ahead, if elected to the board, how do you see yourself working with some of the board members, considering the fact that some of those same board members were part of that messy moment for the Summit School District? Yeah,
I've met with a couple of them, and I don't think there's going to be any challenge to working together. The past is the past. What happened, happened. I don't believe we need to sit here and dwell on it. I think we need to figure out where we stand at this particular moment in time relative to our challenges, relative to what our kids and our teachers need to succeed in this community, relative to what our parents are expecting of us, level set and look forward and start addressing the challenges that we have. We have a staffing shortage. It's hitting transportation. It's hitting our classrooms. We don't have a full-time superintendent right now. I'm sorry, not full-time, but he's interim. And I've met Roy. He's a great guy. I'd like to lock him in for the long term if he's open to it. We need to cement our leadership, make sure we have a superintendent that's speaking on behalf of the students and is creating an environment for our administration and our teachers that they can succeed in. We have so many challenges ahead of us. I don't see any issue, regardless of who it is that gets elected, of working with them to improve our district, to improve our test scores, and to improve the experience of the students, teachers, and parents that are part of the Summit School District.
And Toby, I think that was probably the last thing I had for you. Summed it up nicely there. Any final thoughts or words?
No, I don't think I do. I think we covered pretty much everything as quickly as we could, so I appreciate that. And again, I do appreciate you reaching out and doing a deep dive into the candidates. This is a very critical election, for our district, for our community. Reading through the candidates' bios, I don't really see any bad candidates. I think everybody has something that they can offer at the table. I think that what we all need to do as candidates, though, and what I just answered for you, is to commit to working together once the election has passed. And bringing this community back together. And I think that's sorely needed right now, and it's one of the first achievements I think we need to focus on.
And I appreciate you making time to talk as well. I know you're a busy guy, mayor of Blue River, and also now running for school board. So best of luck with the race, of course. And like you were saying, important election. So I hope everybody takes time to read up on the candidates, listen to some of these interviews, go to the forum on the 18th. And, of course, make sure to check those boxes when it comes time to vote.
Yes, sir. And hopefully they'll be checking one for me. But I don't think you can make a wrong decision. Just they need to do their research, be informed, and engage with the candidates. And we're going to try to be as engaging as we possibly can.
Great. Well, Toby, thanks again for making time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.